from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, digging into the tax plan and what it means for farmers, plus California farm country reaction to the proposed guest worker program and agribusiness soybean sales.
We're about 100 million bushels over the seasonal pace needed to hit USDA's target, but sales are about 100 million behind it.
Machinery Pete has some eye-popping auction prices, and high-tech hands could change the way you spend money.
Ag Day, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Republican lawmakers are wasting little time to push their tax reform plan through Congress by the end of the year. The House Ways and Means Committee is scheduled to begin markup of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act this morning. They hope to move their version of the bill to the Senate later this month. Meanwhile, the Senate expected to unveil its own tax plan this week. The president says he wants to sign that bill by Christmas,
where there will be changes in markup, and then in the House floor there'll be amendments, probably not many, but enough that could change that rather significantly. Then you have the House side where they'll want to keep it as close as possible to the Senate bill, but there's going to be differences. So don't think that some of these provisions, if farmers and ranchers don't like them, can't be changed.
Meanwhile, the GOP bill would lower the top tax rate on farm and other businesses that pay taxes through the individual income tax code and so-called pass-through businesses. The new rate would be 25%, down from a top rate of 39.6%, though it was still unclear what the proposal will do to prevent other firms or wealthy individuals from reorganizing to abuse that rate. The GOP plan would also allow companies to immediately expense capital investments such as new equipment for 5 years, another key goal of agriculture, and small businesses could also still write off loan interest. The Republican plan would also eliminate the estate tax, but in a move that will ease the loss of revenue and help counter Democrats' criticism of the bill that it favors the rich. The GOP will double exemptions for estate taxes and then end the estate tax by the year 2024. Also in Washington, guest worker legislation is slowly moving through Congress. This is nearly 70% of farmers in California report labor shortages this year. That's according to a new survey by the California Farm Bureau. But growers on the West Coast are searching for long-term solutions, not just a short-term fix. Betsy Gibbon reports.
So we call this a 10 ring because it's the size.
As Al Stelly examines another lemon.
The fruit will not pass. It's bigger than the 10 ring, so this would be the perfect size to pick.
Conditions are right to harvest in Escondido, California. The challenge is to find labor, especially for this crop.
Because it's more specialized.
Now lawmakers hope they have a solution. The Ag Guest Worker Act, introduced by Chairman Bob Goodlatte, cleared the House Judiciary Committee in late October. It's designed to replace the H-2A program. Do you think the H-2A program is broken?
Has been since it was enacted.
If passed, H-2C will allow ag employers who need year-round workers to apply. Some of the ag industry says it's not perfect, but a start.
It's a struggle to have confidence that this is going to get done, but we are hopeful, and this is the best opportunity that I've seen in a long time.
It seems to be getting mixed reviews. Lawmakers like Republican Steve King and Louis Gohmert voted against the bill. Some farm groups say the bill has its flaws too.
So they can travel freely and not have to become a guest worker. The administration wants just guest workers. That doesn't really work for us.
Because there's no pathway to legal status. Under the bill, the producer does not need to provide free housing or transportation.
I'm not opposed to those things, but here in California, providing housing is just enormously difficult. I mean, the rules are almost impossible to comply with.
You still have to find a place to live. Where are they going to live? That's the thing nobody takes into consideration.
The bill has an escalation clause, which means under certain conditions, the number of visas go up. Currently, the bill has a visa cap set at roughly 450,000 workers. Some ag groups say that number is too low.
So that is concerning, seeing that California could utilize all that, and that's for the whole country. So that is one of the real concerning problems.
The Ag Guest Worker Act is not the only piece of legislation floating around Congress. Representative Lamar Smith introduced legislation called Legal Workforce Act, which could mandate employers to use the E-Verify system to check the legal status of ag employees. It cleared the House Judiciary Committee and could go to the House floor. Meanwhile, the Judiciary Committee added an amendment to the Ag Guest Worker Act, which would delay the new H-2C visas until the E-Verify bill goes through.
If you enact E-Verify before you enact legislation which gives us an adequate, stable legal workforce, you lose all of those people to E-Verify and you're out of business. But give us a legal tool to hire these workers so that when we go through E-Verify, we don't have to discharge people.
As Stelli's harvest arrives,
So they can't start at dawn like we would with avocados. They have to pick the lemons in the heat of the day.
produce needs to be picked. He hopes legislation will help, not hinder, the process. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
All right, thanks, Betsy. Now, the bill cleared the committee, but it wasn't smooth sailing. Some key Democrats even calling it a slave labor bill. Washington watchers say the chances of the bill making it to the president's desk are slim. Mike Hoffman joining us today with a look at farm country and today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. After that nor'easter tore through New England last week, it certainly changed the drought picture in that part of the country. In Maine, for example, just a quarter of the state now has abnormal dryness. The rest is completely drought-free. Prior to the storm, just 3% was free from drought. The rest was abnormally dry, and nearly 40% of the state was in moderate drought at that time. In North Dakota, 18% of the state is drought-free, but that's a vast improvement from August when nearly half the state was in the most severe categories of drought. Tomorrow on Ag Day, we'll check on corn yields in North Dakota after the drought, and the results may surprise you. Taking a look at the rain from last week, you can see we had some pretty heavy amounts, especially in the eastern Great Lakes from a week ago Saturday to this past Friday. We'll talk a little bit more about that and have the rest of your forecast coming up. First, here are some hometown temps.
Farm Journal On Air is the go-to app for American agriculture. Ag Day, AgriTalk, U.S. Farm Report, and more. 24/7 access to all of your favorite shows, TV and radio. In your hands, on demand. Farm Journal On Air. Download the app today.
When we come back, a panel discussion on shipping soybeans and competition from Brazil, plus machinery. Pete is here.
Stay tuned, folks. Coming up, I'm going to tell you about a 99-year-old tractor that sold for huge money last week.
And later, paying your bill may soon be linked to the blood vessels in your finger. We'll give you details coming up on In the Country.
Unlock the power of ag technology this December in Indianapolis at the first ever Ag Tech Expo. Learn all about it at farmjournalagtech.com.
Beyond those NAFTA negotiations, there's another trade dispute between the U.S. and Canada. It involves softwood lumber, the kind used for home construction in this country. The Commerce Department upholding a U.S. tariff that applies to softwood lumber shipped from Canada. The Commerce Department saying Canadian exporters sell softwood lumber at less than fair value, and Canada provides unfair subsidies to producers. Now, Canada's foreign minister called the duties unfair, unwarranted, and deeply troubling. Also in agribusiness, let's see how markets finished off a bumpy week of trade before the CME in Chicago.
Soybeans, they really dropped almost 11 cents. Profit takers were stepping in and they really pressed those prices lower. They gave back almost all of yesterday's gains and then some. So everyone wanted to take everything off the table. We've got the USDA report coming up next week, and we're going to start watching what's happening in Brazil and Argentina. So all that uncertainty has everyone a little bit uncomfortable. That's why they're taking it off the table. Corn also recoiled, kind of giving back what it had. Live cattle jumped back up. It seemed that the packers really paid up to raise those futures prices up almost 2%. There has been some big gyrations in the market, but the market still remains very strong. This after a 2-week standoff between buyers and sellers. It certainly seems like that really has started to give the market some momentum. That's all from the floor at the CME Group. I'm Virginia McGathy.
South America, soybean sales and acreage decisions for 2018. Tyne Morgan starts our business week off from the road.
Here now on Ag Day, let's look at soybeans and we look at sales versus shipments overall. Kind of, are you comfortable with the position that we're in at this point?
We came into the marketing year with China lagging behind its normal pace. It became very aggressive, and as we did, we picked up the price, and suddenly Brazil's soybeans came back in and started competing. Shipments on a seasonal basis, soybean shipments are very seasonal. We're about 100 million bushels over the seasonal pace needed to hit USDA's target, but sales are about 100 million behind it. So we have to eventually pick up the sales pace, or we're going to start lagging on shipments.
Alan, do you agree with that?
I agree with that. I think we will pick up that sales pace. We had that overhang from Brazil's large crop last year. That's now been whittled down. Their exports in October were only 2.5 million tons or so. So the U.S. is now into that main shipping period. I think China was in no hurry to buy because they were still getting supplies from alternative sources. Now they've got to rely on the U.S. for the next 3 or 4 months, and we'll see some more commitments.
Do you agree with that, or is there a caveat in this?
Well, the one issue is that the U.S. is a 6-month market now. Brazil has turned the U.S. into a 6-month international shipping market. And with a lower protein level coming out of U.S. soybeans, there's the potential for China to look to Brazil if it looks like that crop is going in and will produce.
But are you still more bullish on soybeans than corn at this point when we look at prices?
Soybeans are clearly right now more bullish. It all depends on where we see the acres going next year, what the tendencies are going to be.
Okay.
But the positive on the lower protein, which I agree, is that'll increase consumption here in the United States. It'll take more meal in order to reach the protein needs.
Okay, and real quick before we go, corn versus beans. I mean, next year, let's say we do see acres kind of neck and neck. I mean, is that going to drive down soybean prices next year?
Well, I think soybeans don't have to compete aggressively for acreage because corn's not fighting very hard. And corn's got the problem of wheat. Wheat supplies are record high around the world. It is fed in a lot of places in the world. So corn's kind of dragging wheat along with it, and that gives beans an advantage.
All right, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back with some weather on AgDay.
This is Machinery Pete, inviting you to check out my new website, machinerypete.com, offering farmers tens of thousands of used equipment listings to search. Let Machinery Pete help you find and value your next piece of used equipment.
AgDay weather, brought to you by Kawasaki and the new Mule Pro FXR side-by-side. Ride like a boss with high-end styling and rugged capability.
Welcome back to AgDay meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, if we look at rainfall over the last week, really the majority of that is concentrated in the Northeast.
Yeah, no doubt about it. In fact, if you look west of the Mississippi, there wasn't a whole lot of rain except in southern Louisiana, as you can see right there. There was some snow in the northern Rockies, obviously, but zooming in on that, you can see where the heaviest fell. And it's basically the western half of New York that got the majority of this rain, with 3, 4, 5 inches of rain in many areas, and some of that extended into the mountains of western Pennsylvania, western Maryland, and also northern portions of Virginia, with remnants of the East Coast storm still lingering in parts of the Northeast as well during that time frame. As far as the drought monitor is concerned, you can see how things have almost wiped out that drought in the Northeast. It's long term, so it's kind of unusual for one storm like that to wipe out the drought. And that's why it's taking so long in Montana and western South Dakota. You've had some decent rains over the past couple of months, but it takes a while sometimes to get rid of the drought. We've had that expanding moderate drought, though, Arkansas and some of the surrounding areas. Jet stream, as we head through this week, kind of a transition period. We're going to see troughs moving from west to east from time to time. There'll be shots of cold air like the middle of this week into the northern plains. Then the trough moves in out west, cools it down there. The ridge moves to the middle of the country where it warms up later in the week. And then we kind of go zonal for a little while, with a ridge eventually building next week into the following week, or next weekend into the following week. And that could warm things up in the eastern part of the country. But again, it will all be changing from day to day. But I am going below normal for most of the northeast quadrant of the country, northern Mississippi Valley into the Montana area, eastern Washington, above normal for Florida and the Four Corner region. Precipitation this week below normal for the high plains, the northern plains, all the way down into the southwest, most of Texas and Florida. Above normal from Arkansas to the mid-Atlantic, and also in the northwest. Here's the 90-day outlook. November temperatures, I'm going above normal along the East Coast, Gulf Coast, Southwest, below normal, northern plains, northwestern Great Lakes, into the northwestern part of the country, including northern California. December then, we're going colder for the middle of the country. Looks like northern Mississippi Valley, all the surrounding areas above normal for Florida and the southwest. January, we back off that cold a little bit, near normal for most of the growing regions, above normal most of the south, as you can see. 90-day outlook for precipitation above normal for the northern portions of the Appalachians and the northern Rockies, below normal from Missouri and Kansas all the way through the southern plains. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, for Medford, Oregon, a mixture of sunshine and clouds. Could be a shower, high of 52. Joplin, Missouri, cloudy and a bit cooler with a high of 59. And Elmira, New York, cloudy and mild. Showers are a possibility, high around 62.
When we come back, historic tractors, high prices, and auction excitement from Machinery Pete. And later, forget your credit cards, forget your phone. Let your fingers pay the bill.
AgDay, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential. Machinery Pete is brought to you by John Deere. Where can you find the most comprehensive inventory of John Deere certified pre-owned tractors, combines, and sprayers? MachineFinder.com. Sometimes the best new addition to your fleet isn't new.
Machinery Pete lives in a fascinating world. Well, this morning he has some fresh auction finds with pretty hefty price tags. Greg?
Well, it's amazing how far farm machinery has come in the last 100 years, isn't it? Particularly tractors. Now, last week, I got to tell you folks, we saw some amazing contrast. If we start off on the older tractor side, a week ago Saturday, was October 28th, on a collector auction out in Central California, this 1918 Holt 75 sold on an auction by our good friends at Ammon Auction. And the hammer price on this thing was $310,000, but when you factor in the buyer's fee, final price was $325,500. Wow. Now, same day, October 28th, on an auction in southeast Pennsylvania, this 1921 Frick 1528 tractor, very rare, restored, it sold for $58,000. So another very strong price on an almost 100-year-old tractor. Now again, the contrast part, just a few days later, last Thursday, this would have been November 2nd, up in Regina, Saskatchewan, huge auction by Ritchie Brothers, ton of very large late model track tractors, including this 2013 New Holland T9 670. It's got tracks, 1,841 hours, so for $275,000 Canadian, which if we do the math converted into US dollars, came out to $213,290. So what fun to see about a 100-year-old tractor sell, and then again, one that's just a couple years old. I can't wait to see what we're gonna run across this week.
All right, when we come back, tying your bank to your hands, why fingerprints are now obsolete.
Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers don't just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize it. So corn crops give the max in return. Learn more at maxinmaxout.com. In the country, brought to you by Kubota. Check out Kubota's RTVX 1140, a rugged utility vehicle with seating for 4. Stop by your local dealer today or visit Kubota.com.
A grocery store near London is putting its finger on the pulse of its shoppers, and we mean that literally. Customers can pay for their groceries by using a biometric payment system based on the veins in their fingers. The system is called FingoPay. It works using an electronic biometric reader that builds a 3D map of the customer's finger veins. It then generates a unique personal key that's linked to their bank account. The developer says there's a 3.4 billion to 1 chance of 2 people having the same finger vein structure. At this grocery store, around 1,000 people now are already signed up.
Look, we are uniquely chipped, if you like. We do have the ability to say, this is me, and prove who we are. And you know, identity equals money, identity equals your ability to access a building or do anything really.
Well, I do the same with Apple Pay. I do the same with other, like my Facebook account probably knows more about me than this company will ever know about me as well. So I'm not really bothered by that.
Of course, there are privacy issues to consider by linking your finger to your bank account. Your movements might be traced, unlike using cash, for example. The company says it does not store raw biometric information about customers. The crypto key generated by the finger vein scan is stored anonymously on their their servers. And we're told that FingoPay terminals can also tell whether the finger is attached to a real living person, which I would assume would come in handy. That's all the time we have this morning. I'm sure glad you started your week with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest-lasting heavy-duty pickups.